Hello, my name is Rajesh Sur, and I'm a bachelor's in electrical engineering. And I've done my master's in electrical engineering. I've also done my MBA, and I'm also a senior member of IEEE. And today I would like to give you leadership lessons in three simple steps which I've incurred over the years. And if you follow them, or if you try to, have some perspective on how it is done, I'm pretty sure it may enrich our life as we go forward. So just to give you a better perspective, when I first started my career in electrical engineering, I used to think technical knowledge is very important. Having patterns is very important. But over the years, what I've come to know is that, yeah, those things are important, but it's also important to have some visibility into leadership, how to lead people, how to manage people. There are a lot of things which goes on, and today in this slide I would like to share what I've incurred over the years and which I believe may be helpful. So let's get started. I think the first thing is that we have to manage the outcome and not the process. And what it really means is that, you know, some folks like to micromanage, and today it's not as effective as micromanaging people because everybody comes with a kind of skill set and we have to respect that. So being a leader, if you just manage the outcome, it's much more easier than managing the process. And there are three advantages to it. One, the advantage is that the people feel empowered. They feel that they have the tools and the time to do their things. And what really is important is the outcome. And so, as what I said is managing the outcome is important, but it's not the process as we get along because the team members who are empowered will find a way to enhance the process, and it is not up to us to micromanage them, whereas it is important for us to manage the outcome. The second more the second most attribute team is be an example. So if I'm a leader and expect people to do things, but then I need to be a role model as well. And people follow you. For example, if I say people, you need to put 9 hours of your work time, I have to be at work at 8 o'clock and demonstrate that I can be at work till 7 p.m., which is almost like 11 hours of work. And what you expect people to do, you need to show that you can do more than that because you kind of give an example to other folks to follow you. For example, if you tell your team members, I expect 9 hours of productivity from you, whereas you're only visible in the office only for 5 hours, that doesn't set a good precedent. So always find a way that how you can be an example to the team, and that is one of the key traits of a good leader. The other important three thing is that to give out a lending hand to help someone. What it means is that, yeah, you can tell somebody to do a task, but then if that person gets stuck, be open about giving a lending hand. Helping hand goes a long way, and it has got three basic advantage. Your team members will think that, okay, my leader is there to help me out whenever I'm in a kind of a spot. It's a kind of a reassurance thing because sometimes people just need what you call a nudge. You give a bit of nudge, you give them the helping hand, it goes a long way in getting any kind of problem solved. So that is the third important leadership lesson is give out a lending hand to help someone. That goes a pretty long way. The other important lesson is that be available. You know, the true quality of a leader is being available when the team members want. If you're not visible, if you tell them you're busy, you're kind of your doors are shut, it kind of gives the impression that you're not available to solve people's problem, and that's not a good thing. Some of the key things which I've learned over the years is that if somebody emails you, take the time to respond back to them within 24 hours. It's a good practice. If somebody texts you on Teams, always make it a habit to get back to them. It shows that you're paying attention to the other person. These goes a long way in kind of establishing your leadership skills. If you are not available, people will not approach you. But if you're available, in spite of you being busy, they feel that, well, their opinions are validated and this person is always there to help you. You help them and they'll go a long way to help you out. Remember, any project, any assignment is a teamwork. Nobody can do it by themselves. I have never done things on my own. And there is a very key important statement in English. It says, if you want to run fast, you can run alone. But if you want to run the furthest, you have to run with a team. And hence, to develop a good team is very important to be available. One of the other key attributable leadership lesson is to receive feedback. Many a time, once you become a leader, you don't want to receive feedback from your people who work under you. And it doesn't matter whether you're a leader or individual contributor, it's always good to have a feedback. Now the question is that where do you get the feedback from? Feedback probably you need to get is from somebody who is experienced and who has worked with you, and also somebody at the junior level who has worked with you. So you get two different kind of perspective. Now the other key critical important thing is that sometimes people give you feedback, but they kind of massage the feedback so that you don't get offended. So it is always good to reach out to people who can give candid feedback about yourself. And the main thing about it is that when you get a feedback, don't take it in a negative way. It is not about your workmanship or how you're doing things. It is some guidelines where if you do incorporate them, it kind of helps you improve your process. That's what makes you become a good leader. It makes you a better professional, and you can use it in your personal life as well. One of the other important leadership lessons is lead by example. And this is one of the most important thing which probably I can tell you about. For example, if you tell people to show up at work for certain hours, but then you got to be the leader that who kind of execute the same thing. For example, if I tell a person, let's say Mr. Sam, that you need to put in 7 hours of work, but then I need to be at work and kind of show up and kind of give 9 hours of work because people tend to follow what you say and what you do. So you got to lead by example. The other thing is that suppose I say somebody, let's say Mr. John, that you need to do this project in a week's time. Question is that have I ever done a project in a week's time? Do I have any example of that? Because if I haven't done, how do I expect the other person to do? How can I even mentor him? And that's why it's very critical to lead by example. The other important leadership lesson is listen more. Sometimes, let's say, when I was young, I used to go to some of the speeches given by politicians and scientists. And what I used to see is that every time they are giving the speech, but they're not getting any feedback from the audience. It kind of shows a couple of things. It shows that probably they know everything what they're talking about, and the audience doesn't know anything. And to me, that's not a very effective way of giving speeches or lectures. When I'm in a meeting, I always expect people to talk, and I usually like to listen to what they have to say. And then I do some kind of post processing to understand what they're telling me. And then you kind of build up a relation. Okay, what is this person trying to tell me about his project? How can I help him? But the more I listen, the more I try to understand the issues. Because if I'm not listening, then what kind of feedback am I giving back? It is probably what I know, which may not be true. And hence, listening more is one of the most important traits of a good leader. I do know some of the top military generals because I grew up in a military environment. They used to call something called a meeting in the quarter deck, and he used to say, "Okay, guys, what did he do today?" He was in a listening mode to understand what his pilots did when they were up in the sky. So he was a commander air, so he is mostly grounded to the aircraft carrier. He doesn't know what's happening in the sky. One by one, each of these pilots will give the narration as to what happened in the sky. And based on that, he'll make his decision what needs to improve, what are the good things we have been doing, how do we go forward. So those are the traits of a good leader. One has to listen more. You'll be surprised how much feedback and information you can get if you're in a listening mode and not in a talking mode all the time. Because talking is important. Talking is what I know, but listening is what the other person knows and what he's trying to convey to me. The other important thing about this thing is that once you listen more, that person will be more encouraged to come back to you and give more feedback as to what he's seeing and what he's been observing. So the key trait is that always try to listen more. One of the other traits which I've learned is that over the years is that treat others with respect. And what I mean is that when somebody approaches you for help, or they're stuck with somebody or something, whether it's technical or whether it's kind of lessons of life or some personal issues, always make that person feel welcomed. We need to treat others with respect. It doesn't matter whether this is janitor or whether this is a colleague or a manager or director or vice president. If somebody approaches you, always treat them with respect. I usually leave work around 7:30 p.m. in the night. It's almost pretty empty in the office. And during that time, I see the janitors coming. They like to, take up the trash and, clean the office. My first thing is I always tell them, hello, how's it going? That's my number one speech. Once they clear the dustbin, I tell them, have a nice day. If it's a weekend, I tell them, have a nice weekend. To me, it's all about people. It's not about destination. You have to treat everybody with respect. One of the things which I kind of picked up when I was growing up in the Navy, or rather in the military, is that, and this is a story I heard from my father. He was a commander in the Indian Navy, and he used to tell me, in the bridge of an aircraft carrier, there is a captain of the ship, and there is an enlistee, as what we call them in US, who is standing in the same bridge. When there is nobody around, the captain will usually talk to the enlistee is that, how are things going? They have a very simple conversation. And the reason is because there are a couple of people in the bridge, you have to kind of be in a dialogue mode. So it doesn't matter whether he was the captain of the ship or the other person was the enlistee. It's all about showing respect to the other person. Remember, in a battle station, when there is a war going on, the captain is depending on the enlistee to follow his instruction. He'll give you instruction like, go starboard 15 degrees, go port 30 degrees. Now, it is up to the enlistee to listen to the command. Now, if the captain was nice to him, has treated him with respect before, research has shown that that person will kind of follow the instructions and the captain can depend on him. So what I'm trying to say is that always treat people with respect. If somebody comes to you, be very respectful to them. It goes a long way in creating harmony and getting your projects done. And more importantly, you'll be the kind of person with which people will like to be associated. The other trait of leadership which I would like to say is about elevator speech. It's very important. For example, when you're working in a very large corporation with 10,000, 20,000 people, it is impossible to know everybody. So that's why the elevator speech is very, very important. And what it means is that, let's say you go to an elevator and you meet somebody unknown from a company. Always try to introduce yourself. Hey, I'm Rajesh working in so department. And the other person will also tell something of himself. And then you can just make a quick 30-second pitch about what you do and what the other person does. And if at all there's a matching, we can always follow back with that person. And the key is that always try to follow within the next 24 hours because people have a tendency to forget what happens beyond that. So elevator speech is important. So next time you go to an elevator and you see 3, 4, 5 people, always try to introduce to at least one of them. you'll be surprised that if you try to create a connection, let's say once in a week and 52 in a year, and if you start compounding, even if it's a big organization, you'll be surprised how many connections you're making. And then in future, you don't know whom you need, maybe for some project help or somebody in a different department. It helps a lot. Of course, there are a couple of ways of going about it. Of course, you can talk to your manager, and that manager can talk to that person's manager. It's a long pull item. But nothing is as effective as creating a bonding. So the elevator speech is very important. The other thing is that, for example, if you do happen to see the CEO or a very C-suite manager in the elevator, you can just introduce yourself, who you are, which department you work, which project you're working on. And that person will kind of recognize you. Oh, well, that person, okay, so he works on this particular project. You'll be surprised, many times it may not, hit anything, but sometimes, that little conversation can lead to something. I've seen this in my own life. I used to work in an organization where there was a president of innovation, and we had some kind of discussion in an elevator. And then I kind of followed it up with her the later time. I got a patent on that, a US patent, and also it's got a couple of worldwide patents. It is one of my most cited inventions so far. It has got more than 65 citations. It all started from a very small thing like an elevator pitch. What I thought was important, I followed up with her. The president asked me to come to her office, explain me what it was. And after that, it's history. So again, I cannot overemphasize the point is that try to reach out to people. People may not who you are, but people do remember what you told them on an elevator or somewhere. So don't miss the opportunity to interact with people. Networking is one of the most important thing in corporation, whether it's more so in corporation where you work. In personal life, people have got different ways of interacting, but I will say in a big corporation, in a big organization, a lot of people, elevator speech is a very, very important and critical thing. The second most important leadership quality is say what you do and do what you say. And what it means is that, let's say you come to a team and say, we'll get it done by so and so date. Try to make sure that you meet that date because people rely on you to have a commitment, time and a date. If you don't meet the date, what it kind of triggers to other people is that, oh, well, we can't trust this person. He tells something, but he doesn't want to do it, right? Or, he's not very reliable. So it's very important to do what you say and say what you do. It kind of improves the credibility. Now, when you're new to organization, you may not know all the things. So sometimes it is okay to get a bit blindsided when you're trying to give a schedule. And that's it. That's perfectly okay, right? It's always good to kind of give a date and then follow up why that date is being slipped. You got to be transparent to your team that why you're missing a certain date. But don't keep them in the dark that, this is the date because they expect by certain days certain things will be done. So the last thing we want to hear from you is that you give a surprise on deadline minus 3 days that it cannot be done. That's not a good thing. The other way to do is that let's say you kind of gave a date 20 days ahead of time that you're going to meet by, let's say, 2nd of December. Try to see whether you can meet your objective from 2nd of November. If there are any roadblocks, reach out to your team. Call them on team meetings. Call them for a meet. Call them for some kind of meeting. Tell them what the issues are. But come to the meetings prepared. What the issues are. If the senior leadership doesn't know what the issues are, then they don't know how to help you out. So be very clear your objectives and try to meet your dates as much or as close to as possible. Because the end result is that people will empower you with more projects. But if you cannot meet dates, one thing is guaranteed is that people will think a couple of times before giving you any kind of high profile project in future. The other more critical item is that treat your team with respect since it reflects on yourself. Sometimes in my 23 years experience in the semiconductor field, I've seen you go to a team meeting, people kind of blame each other. Somebody is blaming others because it kind of makes them feel good as though it's not their responsibility. And just to give you an example, let's say if there is Mr. X and he says Mr. Y has not done his job, so I cannot get my thing done. It kind of reflects as the poorly on you because it shows to the other person that this person is not interacting with the other person as closely as it needs to be. And hence, be very careful with the words you use when you try to describe your team. Remember, your team is the most important thing you have. Without a team, it's very impossible to get your projects done. And so, I will say one thing is that always use your words very carefully when you talk about your team. For example, if a certain person has done certain job in a certain way, and then you can say, you know what, Mr. X has done 60% of the job, which I'm very grateful to him. And maybe the other 40% I can take ownership and to get it done. It kind of reflects good on you. So it shows that you're kind of respecting the other team member, but at the same time, you're also trying to cover up for his little deficiency and maybe you've got extra bandwidth and then you're ready to take that job and go forward. And hence, it's very important to treat your team with respect because people don't perceive you individually. People perceive you with the team you're in. In the Marines, I know one thing is that there was a very important kind of training. What they do is that you have 6 Marines holding a boat before they try to go rowing. And what the squadron leader or the troop commander is seeing is that how each of the Marines is working. And I've seen sometime when one of the Marines falter, the other Marine tries to pick them up and make sure that the whole team is looking good. Same thing happens in the real corporate life as well. So not every finger is gonna be perfect. Right? If you look at hands, we got 5 different fingers, right? Each fingers are not of the same length. And so the thing to remember and believe is that the person who has got less potential, and if you've got more potential, you want to bring them up. That's how the team works. Because if you look at the way the hands function, every finger has got their unique operational function. Your ring finger has got some advantage, your thumb has got some advantage, your middle finger has got some advantage. Sometimes you need all the fingers to get it done. Same thing in the real world. You need every member of your team to work for you. And so you have to treat them with respect. You cannot just say this person is important, that person is not important. And that is one of the key lessons in leadership is that you have to treat each and everybody with respect. And you will get much more than what you think you may if you just target individual person. One of the key leadership lessons which I learned over the years is that take one day at a time. And what it means is that sometimes you're working on very complicated project, and I also know that I can't get it done in a single day. And the only way you can do it is that you have to break it up. You have to break it up one day at a time. And this is critical. And that brings us to the other part is that if your today is good, then tomorrow will take care of itself. Every day has got 24 hours. What I typically like to do is that I try to spend at least 10 to 12 hours at work. And I know that each hour which I spend, and if I do it in a very planned way, and if I accomplish something that day, my tomorrow is gonna be pretty better than today. But the key thing to remember is that don't take any day for granted. So if it's a Friday morning, what are my top priorities? I usually like to break up the most difficult part at early morning of the session because that's where I'm most energetic. And things which are important but not as critical will probably be towards 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. And usually I wind up the day around 7:30 p.m. because these are times where I do go and do some surfing or technical articles, what I want to learn. Because my end goal is to learn at least 20 pages a day. I also need to exercise 2.4 miles a day. And so I kind of keep that time towards the end, which are the things which are important but not as critical. And when I come the next day, whether it's Saturday or Monday, I know that today on Friday I did maybe 2% of my overall task and I need to do 2% more. And if you kind of step it away, if you kind of doing small things, you'll be surprised how fast you can get your things done. And so it is always important to take one day at a time. I'm always trying to maintain a record. So today, what did you do? What are the important things you do? What are the things which did not go as well? And if something did not go well, what did you do to fix it? You will see one thing in your corporate life is that some things are repeatable. What you see the issues with one project, maybe with other project as well. As long as you document it, you archive it, you write patterns on it, you write some kind of papers on it. Human brain research has shown the more you write, the more you kind of register it. But if you don't document it, if there is no written report, there is a very good chance that you're going to forget it. And what happens when the same problem happens again? Guess what? You'll be spending finite or infinite number of amount of time reworking the same issue. And hence, always take one day at a time. One of the other attributes of leadership quality is always take the bull by the horn. For example, what it means is that if there is a real issue, try to take the issue head on. Yeah, it's okay to depend on team members, but how you handle such kind of issues is how the people look at yourself. For example, let's say a truck gets stuck in a quicksand. Now people are looking at it and people are thinking, well, who needs to fix the problem? Now, one incident I see in my life is that, we went with a couple of people to a place in Corpus Christi and we parked the truck, on the sand when it was low tide. So we did not anticipate that the water was going to come in during high tide. And which it did, in the late night, the water did come in and the truck was kind of stuck in this wet sand. Next day we had to go to some other destination. The problem is that how do you get the truck out of a wet sand? Now, there were five of us, and we were all looking at the truck. Nobody had an idea what to do because we tried to accelerate. The wheels kept on spinning, but there was no way to get the truck out of the mud. So I was like, and this is almost 20 years back, I was in the university, I was a student, and I'm like, okay, we had limited resources. We had to get back to our university, right? Every day was ticking. So what we did is that we kind of said, okay, well, let's take the bull by the horn. We have a problem. We need to solve it. We have five humans. I think we can get it done. And what we did find out, there were a couple of wooden planks lying in the beach. So we said, well, the wheels are not going to just come off the wet sand, but if you put some kind of wooden plank, then it may create the friction for the wheels to turn forward and go. So we took turns, kind of putting the planks underneath the wheels. There were like two wheels, and we were like, okay, let's take some baby step. Okay, let's try to see where the truck moves or not. It was almost a 6,000 ton truck. So after a few iterations of here and there, the truck did move a little bit, and we were like, wow, this is successful, right? We are getting somewhere. And the process continued for 2 hours, and eventually we could get the truck out of the wet sand and it was moving. So that happened almost 20 years back. But one thing I did learn during that time is had five of us been staring at the truck, nothing was going to happen, right? So after the high tide, low tide does come, right? And after low tide, high tide does come. So this problem would not have been solved. We would have to call a tow truck. It would have been more use of resources, more wastage of time. And we were kind of clueless at that time what need to happen. But the thing which came in handy was that, okay, we have a problem. Let's take it. Let's try to solve it. And that's how we got the problem done. Now that was one of the key things to leadership. In life, in corporate life, you're going to see a lot of challenges. And that's okay because in this today's technological development front, they're going to be complex chips, new ideas, new innovations. One has to solve it. What you did a couple of years is not going to work today because the chip just got complicated. But then you got to take the issues by the horn, just taking the bull by the horn. And once you do that, you have to break down the problem. Okay, now where is the problem, right? So what we can do to fix it? Take incremental step, what I described before. Do a few things at a time, see if it works out or not. If it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, try to go and find out something else which needs kind of needs to get done. And that's how the thing happens. But never leave a problem to kind of go and solve it itself. It never happens that way. It never happens in real life. It never happens in any kind of vacation you have taken place, right? As humans, we have got infinite power to kind of fix problems. It has to have a bit of teamwork, but always be have the mental, said that yeah, this may be a big problem, but you know what? I'm going to fix it. I will take the bull by the horn and resolve it. One of the other trait of leadership is that be approachable. I've seen many top leaders in my life. Some of them are very approachable. It doesn't matter how busy they are, you can always approach them. Whether it's daytime or nighttime or weekends, they'll always keep their cell phone to the team and you can approach them. What it does to the team is that they feel, oh well, I'm not alone in this problem. There are others there to back me up if need be. And the other thing is that if others come to you for any kind of help, treat them with respect. Remember, when somebody comes to you, they come with a lot of aspiration that you want to help them out. Don't shoot that person away. Always make time for it and treat them with respect. Sometimes it is good to have some kind of annotation. Oh, this guy doesn't know this, or he's not that smart. No, that's not correct. He may know a lot of things, but he's getting stuck on certain things, and that's why he's coming to you to kind of help him out. So have the mental mindset that you're gonna treat him with respect. Tomorrow, if you just show him little pieces of tricks here and there or how to get things done, he may be as good as you, right? So thing is that nobody comes with finite amount of wisdom. Important thing is to share your wisdom with the other person and to bring him on par with you. You'll be surprised how many projects can done in a much less time if that kind of knowledge sharing is done. Sometimes it's always about the mindset, it's the mindset of the team. But for that to happen, you got to have a leading example yourself. What I kind of described in a previous slide. You have to show and lead by example. People follow you. And tomorrow what you're doing today may become a culture. If you treat others with respect, other people in your team is going to treat others with respect. There has been a study done where good habits are contagious. At the same time, bad habits are contagious too. So it all starts from myself. If I believe that if I was to, put in a certain trend or a certain trait, I have to start it from myself. I'm the starting point. And to me, one of the things is that I have to treat others with respect, you know, and no exception to that. The other important trait of a leader is it is important what you do from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but it is also important what you do for your organization after 5 p.m. Typically, my work day starts around 9 o'clock. I'm usually out of my office by 7:30 in the evening. And once I get home, I get my dinner, talk to my family, but then I try to read some 5 or 10 pages of my favorite technical book which I like. And then I kind of, break it for sleep and the thing happens, right? But on weekends, I just don't. Yeah, weekends are important, right? You get extra hours of sleep and you get to talk to your family a bit more. But then I also see what I can do for my organization, which was the problem last week, which is bothering me. Was it something to do with the software? Okay, well then I need to solve it. So I open a book and see, okay, what my problems were, right? What do I need to do when my week starts on Monday? What is the first thing I need to do? So one of the example was that I was having some kind of software issue, and I'm like, okay, well, I have three approaches to solve it. The thing is time. So I was like, tomorrow morning on Monday, I'm going to reach work at 7 o'clock. Why do I need to reach there? Because it gives me the extra 3 hours to kind of look at my problem. On Friday evening, I do have a kind of roadmap what I need to get done. And on Monday, I'm going to try out all the three alternatives and see how it goes. And I know next week is Thanksgiving, so basically Thursday is off. But I'm like, I've still got 3 days, and many people may not be at work because they're taking their vacations off. So this is a great time to try out my ideas, right? If I get stuck, there will be somebody at work whom I can reach out. But then I can only reach out if I've got the problem defined. Most importantly, I need to have a plan for myself what I need to do because the other person will not solve the problem for me. And so this is very, very important is that it's very important what you do in your work hours, but it's equally important what you do beyond your work hours. I remember in 1967, my father was a Navy commander on board INS Vikrant, the aircraft carrier. His commanding officer, Rajendra Grewal, told him, Sur, it really doesn't matter to me what you do in the morning hours from 9 to 5 p.m. because Navy pays you for it, right? You're being paid for what you're doing. But to me, what really matters is that what you do after 5 o'clock in the aircraft carrier because that's what I'm interested in. So I asked my father, so what did you do in the carrier after 5 p.m. because they used to go sailing? And this is what he told me. He said, in the night time, the enlist used to take out the maintenance of the aircraft, the fighter aircraft, the Seahawk or the Sea Harrier or the Alizé. He being an officer, one thing he used to do is that he used to set a alarm. At 12:30, he used to go down and talk to the maintenance people. How's it going? Right? What are the things? Do they need any help? And that went a long way. So first thing is that his team was very encouraged, the officers coming down and inquiring what's going on. If there were any issues, he could give them some kind of hints or things what they need to do before going forward. Guess what? The aircraft had to be on the deck by 3:30 a.m. because the first sortie will happen at 4:30 a.m. Just by doing this incremental things, guess what? The motivational theme was very high. Every aircraft is to be on the deck of the aircraft carrier by 3:45 a.m. The first sortie is to happen 4:30 a.m. in the morning. It all came in perspective when India went on a war in 1971. And why I say it came in perspective is because of the training, because of all the things which they kind of accomplished many months or years before. Vikrant did not lose a single aircraft. It was one of the most successful Navy operations done in 1971. And the reason I'm trying to highlight all this is that, you know, before a critical thing happens, you have to practice days, years, after that it becomes a part of your system. Most critical thing in any project, any organization is time. You only have a finite amount of time. So as we all know, we can't stretch the time. Only thing what we can do is that what we cannot do within that 8 hours, we need to have a mindset how to finish it in the next few hours. Every extra hour you get to solve a problem goes a long way to solve the problem. And after a while, what I've seen from my experience, it kind of becomes a habitual thing. So one of the very important trait of the leadership is that it's not important what you do from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But it's also important what you do after for the organization after 5 p.m. Sometimes people ask me, how do I get 891 patents? It's a pretty tall order. I've also authored 4 technical books. I'm a senior member of IEEE in spite of my corporate professional life. I don't tell them much, but in the back of the mind, it's always that I usually don't relax more than I need to. Even if it's Saturday or Sunday, I do spend some time to enrich myself, write a pattern, write a technical paper. Okay, which are the problems which I need to solve? You'll be surprised after many years, you'll be far ahead of the game. When you look back at the accomplishment, you will be like, oh, really? Did I write 891 patterns? How is it possible? Well, I'll tell you a simple thing in mathematics. Every hour you work hard, every extra hour you work, you kind of compound it, you'll be surprised at the kind of results you get. One of the very important leadership traits is that write a report on your progress every day. Accountability is very important. So I started my professional life in semiconductor almost 23 years back. Before that, I did my master's with a thesis. And the reason I chose the thesis option is because I had to write every progress every day what I should do in the lab. And you'll be surprised that technology which I worked almost 25 years was on flip chip technology. Nobody used to give a lot of importance to that technology, but today is one of the most important technology used in mobile defense and a lot of other space. And my thesis was 224 pages, which itself became a book after many years. And today, when I look back at the book, I'm like, wow, did I have to do so much of work? And the fact is, yes. But then, hadn't I kept a written account of it, it's very hard to recollect what you did 25 years back. Even till today, I write a page, book, something all the time, what I'm doing, because each day has got 9 working hours, and I'm doing some kind of research, some kind of studying, some kind of modulations, and I have to keep a report on whatever I do. At the end of the year, if I go back at my work, I'm like 2020, these are the things which I worked on. And I use digital storage platform like LinkedIn, Facebook to document things on a very high level. And then when I go back and look over the years, and I'm like, wow, I've written 891 patterns, 4 technical books, senior member of IEEE. I've done this kind of coding, that kind of hardware development. But it's very important to write what you do, because it's kind of ongoing documentation, and also it kind of tells progress about yourself. The other leadership quality which I've incurred over the years is that read at least 20 pages a day to enhance my knowledge. I'm not saying that I know everything, but there are things which I can read. I usually use thrift books to buy books, and there are a lot of technical books which I get, and I try to enhance my knowledge every day. What I've noticed over the years, you get a compound effect. People when they look at my LinkedIn profile or my resume, they're like, how on earth have you done designing, packaging, test engineering, product engineering, project management, MBA, Masters in Electrical, IEEE, the list goes on. And the reason is because every day I'm curious. I need to learn at least 20 pages a day. I need to understand what's going on. But it has to be relevant to my field, what I do on a day-to-day basis, what kind of interests me. But I'm always open to knowledge. The third most important thing is practice what you preach. I mean, if I tell something to somebody and I don't practice it myself, then I don't have the right to tell the other person to do it. Because if I don't do it, how do I expect the other person to do it? It's a very important thing in leadership is practice what you preach. And because people look at you all the time, okay, he's giving us all the lectures and telling us what to do, but does he do it in real life? People perceive you from a different lens, a different angle. So to give credibility to you, always ensure that practice what you preach. One of the important thing is that Rome wasn't built in a day. We all heard of the Roman Empire, the great Greek civilization, and it was never built in a day. They took years to emerge. So as a leader, always have a long-term perspective. You can't expect things to happen overnight. And that's what I said earlier also, break down things. Expect things to happen eventually. It may not happen today, but if you have a vision, if you have a way to go forward, you will reach your destination. The other most important thing is that people who can overcome adversity are the true leaders and achievers. In life, there will be adversities. There will be things which did not go as planned. Right? Things will have some kind of negative effect. Take those adversities as opportunities. It can be that sometimes things do not go well. You were kind of pushed out of a company. You went to a different organization. Things like that. But take that as an opportunity to learn, right? So I have worked in 5 different companies. And every company I picked up something new. I took that as an opportunity. The culture was different, the setup was different, people were different. But then to me, it's always about a learning opportunity. And one thing I noticed is that people who really can overcome adversities are really the true leaders. they know what they've gone through. There's a very famous movie, Rivers, the Bridge on River Kwai. I think it was built in, it was kind of screened or made in 1959. And in that movie, it's a war movie. It shows the kind of issue they had building a railway bridge in Thailand. Eventually, people overcame the adversity. There were floods, typhoons, structural problem. They built the bridge. It's still standing today. But it's a testimony of people who could overcome adversity and they became the true leaders. The other main point is knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can lead and mentor others. So if I was to become a true leader, I need to have a knowledge almost about everything, right? For example, I cannot work in a microcontroller if I don't know anything about microcontrollers, right? How do I lead a person in microcontroller if I don't know what it is? And the only way you can do it is by reading. So we are not designed to know or learn or know everything, but some person may have written a book, an article, or something. And the first thing as a leader, or rather which I follow, is that try to find out the subject matter expert on a certain thing. If the subject matter person is not available, try to go and read a book and try to enhance your knowledge as much as possible. You'll be surprised. The more you know, the more people will respect you. They will wait for your guidance and vision. And most importantly, they will expect you to solve a problem. After a while, you'll get the nickname, the problem solver. It does not come in a single day. It comes over a period of time. But the main thing is that be focused. Try to keep it in the back of the mind. I need to know as much as possible. I need to be hungry about knowledge. One of the important leadership qualities is also direct eye contact. It's very important. And the reason is because it indicates to the other person that you're kind of giving attention to him 100%. It shows that you're fully engaged. I've been victim, I've done few times, like when I was a team meeting and I got distracted to a cell phone. It's not a good thing to do. Always try to maintain 100% eye contact during a meeting. It tells the other person that you are engaged and you are very much involved in a conversation. In your conversation, always use a personal name at least couple of times. There has been a study that people like to hear their names being called out. It gives a pleasant feeling. For example, if you're talking to somebody called Ramesh, always say, Ramesh, so what do you think of this project? And then Ramesh gives you some kind of feedback. And you say, okay, Ramesh, could you have done it in a different way? And that person will respond to you. And then you'll say, okay, Ramesh, why don't we follow up in a couple of days from now? And that person will follow up with you. But the key thing is that in that conversation of couple of minutes, I mentioned the name Ramesh 3 times. To me, it's important being a leader or being referring somebody to by the name. Some of the military movies I always see people say soldier, say infantryman, this, that. No. Always is good to refer a person by the name. They feel like they belonging. And the other thing which is very important is to paraphrase. Always try to repeat some of the context what people are talking to you. For example, if somebody is coming to me and saying, I cannot measure the current, I'll say, well, you cannot measure the current because you didn't have a voltmeter, ammeter, or a probe. And that person will go about saying why you cannot measure the current because the device was not functional or something was not correct. And I'm saying, well, okay, you cannot measure the current because of so and so, steps. But look at the thing, I'm kind of paraphrasing what he's telling me. The moment you start repeating what he's telling you, at least in the overall context, the other person gets the signal that this person is listening to you and he'll be more engaged in the conversation. But instead of that, think of it this way, somebody gives you a lecture for 15 minutes what's going on and you never even responded back to the person. So to the other person he's like, well, this person is probably not listening to me, so why even bother? Time management is very critical. Remember, you only have finite time to finish a project. Make sure that you have a timetable. Make sure how to go about things is very, very critical in achieving complex, complicated projects. Second thing is that choose your battles very carefully. You may have a lot of burning fires in your project, but you can only solve so many problems at one time. Try to identify which battle is the most critical battle, and that's what you're going to attack. Remember, in the olden times, maybe 1,000 years back, they used to fight battles in the battlefield, and that time they used to have a strategy. Which is the most important thing in the battle? Is it, do I need to concentrate on this section or the supply section or logistic or something else? So you have to be very careful which battles you need to pick up, and you have to put all your resources and eggs in that battle to kind of solve it. Once the major problem gets solved, you'll be surprised the minor problem kind of takes care by itself. The other important thing is be transparent. People cannot read your mind. If I'm thinking something of a project, what I usually do is that I kind of document. Okay, these are my steps which I need to follow. These are the days by which I need to get it done. People kind of see that or perceive what you're trying to do. But if you come and say, I'm going to get this project done by 2nd December, to many people, what does it mean? It means nothing, right? There are no steps. There is nothing they can read your mind. You just kind of give them a blind spot. As a leader, try to avoid that. Try to be as transparent as possible. Make your team know what you're up to, what are the challenges, how do you expect to overcome a certain obstacle and get your deliverables done. One of the very important quality in leadership is leading from the front. Alexander the Great was my hero. And well, I was not alive during his time, but I did read one thing that for every battle, he used to be leading from the front. He used to tell his soldiers what it is to lead from the front. And so right now, many thousands of years have gone by, but it is still perceived the best leaders are the one who lead from the front. If you tell somebody to work for 14 hours, you take the lead from front and show that you can work for 15 hours. The other important thing which I learned over the years, if there is success attributed to the team, don't take success and credit to yourself. I have never done that. I've always said it's a team's effort. If there is a failure, I'm the first one to take the ownership and blame for it. And the reason is because I'm going to take the ownership and blame and I'm going to fix it. These are the kind of traits in a leadership. I've seen sometime if there is success, there are a lot of people in the fray to take the ownership and say, he did it. I never do that. I always say it's a team's effort because honestly, it's a team's effort, right? I mean, people who have won great battles was not done by the leader. It was done by the other people who were fighting with the leaders. And if a battle is kind of defeated, or if you have lost a battle, it's not always because of the leader, because certain things have not gone correct. And if I'm the leader, I have to take the blame for it or the ownership for it, and I have to go and deep dive and see what could have been done so that the outcome of the results are very different if you have to do it all over again. So, three important things. Lead from the front. If there is success, attribute to the team. Guess what? The same team will be willing to work with you again. If there is a failure, be the first one to take the ownership and try to resolve the problem. The other qualities in leadership is be consistent, right? So if you can solve a project today, you should kind of build up a reputation that you can solve many other kind of projects. It's not that you can only do for 2 months or 8 months you cannot deliver. Be repeatable. It's very important to be repeatable. So basically what it means is that if you can do certain things today, I would expect you to do things 2 years from now. Be reproducible in a result. Just don't show one day wonder kind of thing. So let's say you kind of design a chip, it works on a certain day. Make sure that it works for 100 other days. Reproducible of result is very important. Some of the great companies I know are Apple and Boeing and things like that. And one of the reasons they created that kind of reputation is because it's about, oh, I use the Apple product, yeah, it's going to function every time I turn it on. So people have the mental image of it. Many years back, it used to be Boeing. So remember, I used to go in a Boeing aircraft and you're like, oh, well, this aircraft is so reliable. So make sure you can reproduce your results. So the key thing is that be consistent, be repeatable, be reproducible in your results. If you go to a game, for example, a soccer game or a cricket match, the teams which kind of consistently do their performance, they kind of repeatable, they kind of same produce the same result of winning. People bet their money on them. That's the kind of the team which is favorite, right? And that is the team which is consistently winning. And for that, you need other things like practice and all that stuff. But the main thing is that you have to be consistent, repeatable, and you have to reproduce the same results. People will love you for you for that particular trait. And this is my final slide on leadership. And this is the thing which is very important to me, that keep a very close circle of people who support you. What I've seen over the life is that people who believe in you don't need proof, right? You tell them anything, they just kind of believe you. And that's because they've got a lot of faith in you. Now, there are other kind of people who don't trust you, they'll never trust you irrespective of how much you try to convince them. So it's very important when you get to choose your team very carefully, because remember, people who trust you are going to support you. People who don't trust you, there is a good chances, research have shown, they will not trust in what you say and they'll probably not follow in what you're trying to tell them. So in nutshell, this is my deep dive or my lesson on leadership which I learned over the many years. Feel free to write a comment, as to what you may have learned from it, or maybe some of the leadership lesson which you have picked up. It's a pretty vast topic. I did my MBA, I learned about leadership. I learned some leadership qualities from my father, and there is nothing like one shoe fits all. There are different traits, there are different things which work for different people. But what I try to condense is some of the experience which I've learned over the years. And the reason what I said in the starting slide about my patterns is, patterns are very difficult things. It's not everybody who gets a pattern. I got almost 5891. I got almost 158 patents granted. I'm also senior member of IEEE. Only 4% of professionals ever get to become a senior member of IEEE. I've also written 4 technical books and I've written a thesis. The thing which I was trying to say is that all these things come about if you have certain traits. I'm still learning, I'll still continue to evolve, but I thought that there is nothing as more satisfying as trying to share what you've learned over the years and get consistent feedback. You can, and the other important thing is that, I may pick up some new friends, they may kind of ask me what needs to be done. And that's the whole thing about the human race and the human life. We all learn from each other. That is the most critical thing. And just taking my example, over the years, I've tried to filter out some of the bad habits I have, right? Or habits which have not been working for me. But I try to embrace the good things. And the other very important thing which I learned over the years is learn. Try to learn at least 20 pages a day. You'll be surprised, like what I said earlier, the compounding effect of learning. My grandmother said one thing to me when I was a very young kid, that there is no dearth of learning. You can learn till the age of 81 years of age. To be very honest, I never understood what really it meant. But over the years, I think I understood what it kind of meant. I did my Bachelor of Engineering when I was in my early 20s. I did my Master's in my early 20s again. But I did my MBA when I was in my 40s. The reason is because I learned what my grandmother said. There is no dearth of learning. You can keep on learning till you die. And the other very important thing what she told me is that there are habits which you incorporate in your life over the years, but the more you learn, the more you become knowledgeable, you try to get rid of the bad habits and try to incorporate the good habits. With all, thank you for having the patience to listen to all my slides, and I hope you have picked up something useful from this. And hopefully in future we get to meet again and we can converse more on leadership or other technical topics which I'm pretty passionate about. Thank you. Bye.